right, hello and welcome to the Cultivators Conversations vidcast. It's a video series brought to you by Cultivate where we chat about a variety of topics that may be of interest to people who have a desire to change the status quo. That's who Cultivators are. I'm Jeff Montague. I'm the community manager for Cultivators Community, and joining me today is Jamie Kane from the American Cancer Society. Jamie, welcome. This is your second time on Cultivators Conversations. You're a
We're a
repeat guest.
repeater now, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. Or maybe your third time since
Well,
the previous episode.
did not go the way we wanted,
No,
Jeff.
right?
We may have procrastinated a little bit.
Maybe so. So I think that was a pretty good example of what is actually it's called acrasia, or a term. I think I'm pronouncing it right. It's the state of acting against your better judgment. So we read an article about acrasia, more specifically about procrastination as the way that we act against our better judgments. And you read the article, right?
Yep, I actually did. I did not
On time,
procrastinate.
right?
I actually read.
And then I read, and then you sent me another article about procrastination as well. And so we read both of those. That's called "You're Not Lazy, You're Scared." How to finally stop. What is it? How to finally stop procrastinating, and that's from Forbes.com. So clearly, procrastination is something that a lot of people are faced with. And if you even think about it in terms of a cultivator who has ideas, a lot of times our ideas are big, right? Or the end result of that idea is a big change. And I think one of the things that any human being struggles with is when you're facing some kind of big project or big thing that you want to make happen, you procrastinate.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to me, and I don't know if you feel this way, but there's time like I'm very excited about the project. It's not like I'm not excited about the project. I'm actually passionate about the project, might love the project, but it's that, I think it does link back to both articles because there is that kind of maybe that fear or apprehension of just starting.
Yeah.
And especially I don't know if you did strength finders, but I did, and ideation is my number one. Process is not necessarily a strength. We work on that though. You find ways to use that to your advantage. Yeah.
Ideation is what you say is
Is my number one strength.
your number one strength. So you are really in your element whenever it's coming up with ideas, you're brainstorming, and then it's moving from the planning to action that you might struggle with.
Because that's kind of like the flashy part of it, right? The exciting part is the idea, the creation.
What it could be.
And then when you come back to me and you're like, okay, Jamie, that's awesome. That's a great idea. What's step one? And then the fear hits, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I don't know what step one is yet. But guess what? Jeff could help work me through step one.
Well, that's the cultivators community should, be there for that.
Yeah.
One of the things I found in the first article we read, the Acrasia article, was talking about like the common reasons we procrastinate is due to time inconsistency, which is the tendency of human beings to value the immediate reward more highly than the future reward. And, you take it outside of work even, it's kind of like if you say, oh, I'm going to lose weight and get healthy and whatnot, right? That's your long time reward because you're not going to instantly lose 10, 15, 20 pounds overnight. But when you wake up in the morning and you're, hey, there's some donuts on the counter, there's the instant gratification and the long-term goals go out the window. So we are kind of trained as human beings as ourselves for that instant gratification that overpowers us and we lose that self-control. And I like that they tied procrastination to that, right? To where procrastination is like, instead of working on the long-term reward, which includes some small steps toward that, I'm going to do the things like in the last video where we did the whole, let me check my social media, and
working through someone after like quitting smoking, you're talking about like, what are your patterns, what are your behaviors around that, trying to change them. So like we talked about like the phone, like, okay, so, barrier is going to be me checking my social media. Well, you know what, let's put my phone in the other room and then I could like bear down and, really get to the work. And that was the essence of the original article was, those commitment tools that we could use to really help us start that process and make sure that, we're not easily distracted. Because the other thing, your point about healthy eating, we're also bombarded, right, with all these different messages. So it's really easy to have this goal and then you wake up the day linking those two topics together, you bring up your phone and you might see an ad for, the restaurant has your favorite food on discount
Double
that
whammy.
day, and like universe is working against us,
Yeah,
conspiring against us. But you just have to, figure out a way to, set aside some of those distractions where you can.
that's true. And you got the that I like that you're kind of taking it there with that endless self-defeating cycle, which was I think was referenced in the "You're Not Lazy" article, right? Where
Right.
sometimes procrastination is avoiding an unpleasant task. So,
Mm-hmm.
to your point, even you said earlier about I get excited about certain ideas, and even those some people may procrastinate on. But I do think maybe the more, if you almost kind of count how much or what you procrastinate on, it's probably, would you agree that it's like the thing that I want to do, I'll do. And even like if it's a big project and I'm not as excited about it, you keep kind of kicking that can down the road until maybe the day before it's due.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's all of it right there is, you get excited about the parts and the aspect of it that you like, but the parts that you don't, you keep, saying, and we did this in the example episode where, we'll kick it down the road. We really want to have this conversation. We're very passionate about this conversation, but hey, we ran through all the things that can happen. Your IM goes off, the phone goes, and like that, squirrel mentality of, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is shinier than actually getting into the work of what I actually need to do, and it becomes a barrier. And
Yeah.
the more we could set up to diminish those, and then really like what I love about all of the source material here is, just taking a first step and getting into it. And that analogy of not the healthiest thing, but eating an elephant, one bite at a time. And once you start in, then it will work the process a little bit easier.
Yeah. And that's kind of the strategy, right? Is
Yeah.
if you're procrastinating more times than not because the task seems or the project seems too big, that's the advice, right? Between that, this book Surge here that Steve wrote, I really do highly recommend this book. And even he talks about breaking it down into smaller tasks. And you look at the articles, both of the articles that we read talked about breaking things down into smaller, more like easier tasks to that you can accomplish, and you almost create this habit of
Mhm.
making things happen, and then the overwhelming reason to procrastinate is gone because rather than like we did in the example, rather than just oh we've got to do this big video, let's the first thing we thought, let's schedule a meeting, let's do this, like breaking it down to the very fundamental elements. Now granted, don't schedule too many meetings, see our
It goes
earlier
back.
video about that.
Exactly, where we already solved for that problem.
Yeah.
But no, that's exactly it. And breaking that down has always been the best way to approach it and make it more manageable. And also like some of those other tools. If you need to focus on a project, building that time in your calendar. Holding to it, sticking with it, making sure that you are setting yourself up for success with it too. And that's what both source materials we're talking about. Really, planning that out and thinking that out, and not just winging it and like jumping into it, but really putting some intention to it.
That's right. And then I think the other component was, you're not lazy if you procrastinate. Procrastination is not laziness. It's, or you're not scared, right? You're not lazy. You're scared. And sometimes it's the fear of success as much as the fear of failure or the fear of not having it all figured out before you start. And that's something I think we as humans need to remind ourselves of. It is okay to start something even if you don't have the entire thing figured out.
Yeah, and
Yes.
we kind of used that a lot in our procrastination example, where we were going back and forth on that.
Right.
Like, we need more information. We have to survey. We have to do
Yeah,
this. We have to do that.
exactly.
And quite honestly, we had enough. We had more than enough information to start the conversation.
Clearly.
And that's most of the time you think you need and build that into your process. If you need to have more information, that you could start the process and build that in. That fact finding is going to be a part of it, right? And
Right.
how are we going
And
to do
that's a
that?
smaller task to do. Right.
Exactly.
But you
Exactly.
can't wait until the whole thing's due the next day to start the small tasks, right? It's kind
So
of like,
if you had to do that, Jeff, did you ever lock
what's it?
away your entire wardrobe?
What's
So
lock away my wardrobe? No. Oh,
just the
like
source material.
what Van Gogh did.
Yeah.
I do like
So
that tactic about how you say like when I'm folding clothes and putting clothes away, I say like that's going to be time where I brainstorm or think about this type of activity or something. That's pretty smart. Like use your, and it's kind of like a shower principle too, where your
yeah,
best ideas come when you're not focusing on work.
Absolutely. When your mind is clear and you're ready to engage.
Yep. And then they had the comment in one of the articles about being in the middle of work is less painful than being in the middle of procrastinating. And so why do we still procrastinate? And what it was kind of talking about is like being in the work is not the hard part. The hard part is starting the work. So going back to, if you shrink it down, maybe starting the work is harder because you haven't shrunken it down enough. Because you know what I mean? It's almost like if it's still too intimidating to start, it's still too big. That task is too big. So how do you keep shrinking it down?
And
feed your instant gratification.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, too, where as humans, getting some help with that too, especially if it is something that you tend to struggle with. Like I talked about back to the conversation about strength finders. I know that's kind of a flaw. Not a flaw, but it's something I could work through, right? But if, and I know if you're a really good process person, I know you could help me work through that. And I don't have to do that myself. And that, again, takes away some of that. And you need that help. You can't, especially if it's a huge project that you're tackling, you probably shouldn't be in it alone. And we'll get some help to do that, right?
Yeah.
Which will be part of the, fear.
It's like surround yourself with the people who complement those things about yourself. So if you're good at this and you want some help with that, then bring somebody in to help. And then you have that whole accountability part too, right? So now the both of us are in this, and I might not let you procrastinate because I'm excited about the idea.
That's a conversation for another cultivators conversation, but that accountability partner.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people working through that and having great success with that, and you need that. I really think, as humans, we need someone to say, I have this great idea, but I need some help, working through this piece of it. And, being honest, having those conversations, how can we best do this, and then holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
I love that idea and that concept.
Well, we have one of the conversations videos, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where I talked to Melissa Hicks about in that virtual setting where you get it, if you have focus time and you have and maybe we pair that with procrastination, right? It's where you schedule time to work on this project or task. Schedule it like it's a meeting. Oh wow, this is like the inception of cultivators conversations. You get the meeting scheduling, you schedule your time to work on something as a meeting, you add the accountability buddy, so bring somebody into the call, even if they're not helping you, like just Jamie, let's just sit quietly and do our work, right, together. And then you've accomplished, you're not procrastinating because you're working on it.
I mean, technology will help us with this. Cortana, I'm saying that right? Like they will help schedule focus time for you. They'll look at your calendar,
Oh, Clockwise. You're talking about Clockwise.
Clockwise is another great example of that. They'll really help with that. Those tools are so valuable because, that's another part where we can make that excuse, right? Where, now I have to go find time.
But I can't do it yet until I actually need to integrate my Clockwise. I've got to read all the documentation.
Yeah, but in all honesty, like it didn't really take that long, but it's just another easy thing you tick off the calendar and tick off the to-do list, and now you don't have to worry about that. So, those tools, and technology has so many answers to a lot of this. And we should be always looking that way, and that'll help us get started, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's right. The lesson here is when you have an idea you want to make happen, and if you're kind of recognizing that you're procrastinating on getting started toward making that idea happen, one of the first things you can do is maybe either make your first task, and it's that blank canvas syndrome, right? Make your first task, any task, it doesn't matter, but just do something about it. That might, and shrink that task down to, I'm just going to tell Jamie about my idea. Just tell somebody else about your idea. And then, if that person gets excited about the idea, you get a little bit of momentum. And every action that you take builds more and more momentum. Eventually, that's what you're working on. And you're procrastinating everything else.
Exactly. And directly linking that to fear, if that is part of it, like I'm afraid to put my idea out there. If I talk to you and you think it's a good idea and you see value in it, that's going to help me move, right? Because now I talk to Jeff, I trust Jeff. I think he has a good mind for this. And now I put the idea out there. And sometimes it is just simply that.
That is something. That's another cultivators conversation topic one day, is knowing or being able to identify who are your people that you like to share ideas with.
Absolutely.
And that usually is like somebody who comes from a place of yes versus a place of no, maybe. So that's another topic we'll do. But for right now, we are out of time for today's episode. Jamie, thanks for joining us and having this conversation with us, sharing your thoughts. Thank everybody for watching and or listening to Cultivators Conversations. If you missed any of our previous episodes, the good news is you don't have to watch or listen to them in order. We do have a playlist on Cultivate's YouTube channel. And if you're a change maker with a desire to change the status quo, think about joining the Cultivators community by going to cultivateall.com/cultivators.